Today, we are talking about one of the most iconic and historic neighborhoods in St. Louis, Lafayette Square. Now, in this quick little video today, I'm going to give you a rundown of this neighborhood, a little bit of the history, what it's like to live here, talk about some of these amazing homes, and some things to do here. By the way, welcome to the Living St. Louis channel. Jacob here. Glad to have you with me on this journey through history today. Now, not really. A little bit of history, but not too much. Before we get into this video, quick little side note regarding the pronunciation of its name. St. Louis has a lot of French influence, the name of this neighborhood included. Now, if we were in France, I know a lot of people would pronounce it Lafayette as the correct French pronunciation. However, in St. Louis, you'll notice that people here say it more like Lafayette, Lafayette Square. So if you notice and you think I'm saying it in a weird way, I'm saying it the way that people will pronounce it most of the time when you're here in St. Louis. Now, everything in this neighborhood centers around the park, Lafayette Park. This is one of the highlights of the neighborhood. The park is about 30 acres in size. It is the oldest city park and the oldest park west of the Mississippi. It was dedicated in 1851, and a lot of the most beautiful homes in this neighborhood all surround the park. These Victorian painted ladies are what Lafayette Square is known for. They are honestly some of the most gorgeous and iconic homes in St. Louis. Also some of the oldest. Now, Lafayette Square, not to be confused with the Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C., New Orleans, or Los Angeles. I didn't realize there were so many of them until I was doing research for this video, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I think St. Louis did it best. I'm telling you, the St. Louis version of Lafayette Square is hard to beat. Now, let's talk a little bit about the location and the layout of this neighborhood. You are pretty much in the heart of St. Louis, and you're in a great location, pretty close to some other great neighborhoods, including downtown, Soulard, Benton Park, Tower Grove, Central West End. So if you want to live in the middle of the city with easy access to the rest of all these very classic St. Louis neighborhoods and things to do, Lafayette Square is perfect. You also get the benefit of being in a great location with easy access elsewhere, but you're not as cut off from the rest of the city like Soulard, for example, which is kind of isolated because of the way the highways cut it off from surrounding neighborhoods. Now, with Lafayette Square, you will notice that towards the south, because I-44 is the southern boundary for the neighborhood, you will have the benefit of living right next to I-44, I-55, and I-64. So when it comes to getting around the rest of the city, or if you're venturing into the suburbs of St. Louis County, or maybe taking a trip east into Illinois, you've got 3 interstates right here that will make that very easy for you. Now let's talk just a little bit about the history of this neighborhood and how it came to be what it is today. Lafayette Square is a neighborhood that has gone through a couple phases over the years, and it's had multiple ups and downs. It was first established pre-Civil War, and you will have a couple homes here that date back to before the Civil War, but most of the neighborhood was built in the decades right after the Civil War. So by the late 1800s, it was becoming a beautiful neighborhood, and then in 1896, there was a bad tornado that really did some damage to the southern half of the neighborhood and kind of set it back. So the neighborhood was partially rebuilt after that tornado, and it was looking good again up until the start of the Great Depression, where things started to go downhill again. It became a pretty rough and sketchy area, definitely not the kind of place most people would want to hang out. And then in the 1960s, it started to turn around again when we saw a bunch of younger families starting to move into the neighborhood and buying up these old dilapidated homes and then restoring them and renovating them to their full potential. And that's a trend you'll notice in a couple other St. Louis neighborhoods, not just Lafayette Square, but there's such a unique history and style in this neighborhood. And what you'll notice is that, all of these homes have been beautifully redone and renovated, and a lot of people who live here have a lot of pride in their homes and in this neighborhood. And that's just one thing I really admire about it. When you move to this neighborhood, you're not just moving into a neighborhood, you're moving into a community, and one that is very proud of itself. For a good reason. There's a lot to be proud of. Now, Lafayette Square is both a national and a local historic district. And it is a historic district that is known for having some of the more strict regulations as far as architectural guidelines go. So that means there are some strict rules people have to follow when it comes to either building a brand new home or modifying the exterior of an existing home. As far as the roof, windows, fencing, doors, there is a very strong push to make sure that what is built or what is renovated very closely matches the architecture of the time period all these homes were built in. So the Lafayette Square Neighborhood Association has a preservation committee, and it is that committee's job to basically preserve and enforce the architectural guidelines for the neighborhood. Now, let's talk about the homes if you are moving into Lafayette Square. You will find a bunch of these beautiful and historic single-family homes that are all either 2 or 3 stories. A lot of them are brick on all 4 sides. And what you'll notice is that they tend to have a painted facade, usually some kind of pastel color. You'll see some purples, pinks, grays, orange, and then you'll notice a couple that are pretty bright, either pink or blue. There's some fun ones mixed in there. A really cool feature you'll notice also is that these homes have huge ceilings. I'm talking 10, 11, 12-foot ceilings. So if you're looking for a house that really feels wide open and roomy, you'll find a bunch of them in this neighborhood. Hey, by the way, if you're looking to move into this neighborhood or somewhere else in St. Louis, my colleagues and I are a practicing real estate group. We'd love to help you buy, sell, invest, whatever that looks like for you. Give us a shout, text, email, whatever works for you. Contact info is right there. Now, talking about the painted ladies, you will notice that some of the most gorgeous ones in this neighborhood are along Mississippi Ave or Park Ave, directly facing Lafayette Park. And if you're lucky enough to end up with a home that directly faces the park, those are some of the most desirable homes in the neighborhood. Now, what you'll notice throughout Lafayette Square is that most of the homes are either single-family homes or attached row homes. You'll see a couple options for multifamily. There's some duplexes and fourplexes, but not a ton. Now, this neighborhood specifically has done a really good job with infill. So the brand new homes very closely match the existing historic homes. They look the same on the outside, and quite honestly, some of them look the same on the inside too. I mean, you'll have some homes that are 2 years old and some that are 150 years old. And I'm not kidding, they will look equally nice and brand new on the inside. Obviously, beneath the surface, the bones and the structure will be very different, but aesthetically, a lot of these renovated homes look pretty much brand new. And if you're looking for more of that apartment or condo kind of living, you've got some great choices for that in this neighborhood also. So one of the biggest condo buildings to know about is the Georgian. It used to be a hospital back in the day, but it has since been converted into 104 condominiums. And then you've got Eden Lofts, which is a very lofty condo building. It was converted from an old publishing company, and now it's residential condos. Now, those 2 buildings are condos for sale. If you're looking more for an apartment for rent, one building to know about is going to be the Lofts at Lafayette. It was actually an old shoe factory that has since been converted into loft apartments. Another one is the Bordeaux. This was an old mop factory that has also been turned into loft apartments. So these are all 1 and 2 bedroom apartments for rent. Now you've also got some exciting newer developments in Lafayette Square too. One of them is 2200 LaSalle. This was a recently built apartment building towards the north of the neighborhood. Brand new apartments, secure parking garage, beautiful outdoor pool. And another one that is under construction right now is 2300 LaSalle, which will have a similar style of these contemporary new apartments for rent. Now, both of those buildings are towards the northern part of this neighborhood, in this area where they're trying to turn some of these vacant lots into more usable residential space. So there are talks of more in the future since there are a couple lots remaining. So that's just one thing you can expect towards the north, right along Shoto Ave. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're moving into Lafayette Square is the parking situation. Now, a lot of single-family homes will usually have a detached garage or some kind of covered parking pad in the rear. And a lot of these newer apartment buildings will have a secure garage under the building. However, the older ones do not. The older buildings will have a parking lot. Sometimes it'll be more of a secure lot with a gate to get into it. And then if you're looking at a house or a row home that does not have any kind of garage, you're either going to be dealing with street parking or maybe some kind of off-street parking pad in the back alley. Just one thing to keep in mind, and that really goes for other neighborhoods within the city. Some homes will have a garage, some will not. And then with the apartment buildings, it's kind of hit or miss depending on how new of a building it is. Now, when you move into Lafayette Square, like I said, you're not just moving into a neighborhood, you are really moving into a community. It is a very active and close-knit community. And even though Lafayette Square isn't necessarily the biggest neighborhood, they have a ton of events and things you can do when you live here. So the neighborhood association plans and coordinates a bunch of fun events throughout the year. A lot of things happening in the park. You've got the summer concert series. They've got a fun holiday market in the wintertime. If you're into gardening, there is a community garden right at the corner of Dolman and Park Ave. You might find different social groups. I know there's one called Moms in the Square, which is what it sounds like. It is a group for local moms who live in Lafayette Square. If you like swimming or tennis, you can join the Bath and Tennis Club. It's got a really nice pool if you're looking for a fun hangout spot during the summertime. Keep in mind, they might still have a couple year waiting list to get in. I do know they're pretty popular and they've been full recently. Now, other fun things to do in this neighborhood, if you are an architecture or a history buff, you are gonna love the walking tours to guide you through the architecture and the history. And they've also got a spring and a winter tour of the homes in the neighborhood. The money they generate from tickets goes towards just improving and maintaining the aesthetic of the neighborhood and common grounds. Again, like I told you, people who live in this neighborhood and own the homes here are very, very proud of them. They love showcasing them for these home tours. So if you want the chance to go into some of these homes and see what they look like on the inside, definitely take advantage of those tours. And then talking about more things to do, Park Avenue is going to be the main street you want to know about in Lafayette Square. This is going to have a lot of your bars, restaurants, coffee shops, ice cream. It goes along the northern side of the park, so it is a great place to go grab lunch, get some coffee, get some ice cream, and just walk through the park. If you're just visiting for a day or you're scoping out this neighborhood because you think you might want to live here, that's a great way to do it. You've got some of your neighborhood classics throughout Lafayette Square, some of them being Planter's House, Polite Society, 1111 Mississippi, Squires, Bailey's Chocolate Bar if you love a good chocolate martini or an espresso tini. Some of my faves. They've got one of my favorites in St. Louis right there. I think last time I went there, I don't know if it was on the menu, but the bartender made me some kind of like chocolate raspberry martini. Chef's kiss. It's pretty good. You've got some other classics like Clementine's Ice Cream, Mayo Ketchup, Square One Brewery. I will say it is a small neighborhood, but man, it has some really, really good choices for food and drink. I mean, there is just nothing to not like about Lafayette Square. The homes, the history, the architecture, and the places to go grab a bite and have a snack gets me going every time, let me tell you. If I can do anything to help you, just send over an email, send us a text, get in touch. Anywho, let me know what is your favorite part of the neighborhood. What I talk about today that got you excited about it. Just comment down below, let me know, would love to hear from you. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video right here on the Living St. Louis channel. Take care.